I'm joined by Kalpesh Jain, who's Solution Engineering Manager for the APAC region for SOCRadar. So welcome, Kalpesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Firstly, can you tell us a bit about SOCRadar and what you do?
Sure. So SOCRadar is basically a threat intelligence company, and we help organizations identify what are the risks that can possibly cause a breach for these organizations. And that covers risk from on external attack surface, risk that in terms of data leakages, risk in terms of phishing sites or executive impersonation, and also it includes risks coming from third-party companies or suppliers and vendors, which can possibly tie back to the organization. So that's what we do.
You co-moderated a roundtable discussion alongside Bastion Security earlier, entitled Threat-Led Defense When Your Attack Surface Keeps Shifting. Can you just briefly explain to us what threat-led defense involves in practice?
Absolutely. So threat-led defense is basically a proactive approach to security, right? Where the organizations are focusing more on what could possibly attack us rather than thinking about how many assets we have or what's the kind of ecosystem we have. So in some sense, we are basically proactively looking at different types of risk areas and taking measures to really avoid a targeted attack or avoid a breach from happening. And that's what a threat-led defense is about, to move away from reactive approach to a more data-driven, prevention-based approach.
Fantastic, thank you. How specifically does the synergy and partnership between SOCRadar and Bastion work to protect your clients? And what are the keys to it being an effective partnership?
Yeah, so I think the partnership that we have with Bastion Security Group is amazing, and it helps our customers get the best of both worlds. SOCRadar brings the product-based expertise in threat intelligence in terms of having the industry exposure, having the experience from the past over 1 decade in terms of how threat actors operate, how do they really target different customers. And at the same time, Bastion is our local partner, right? They bring the local expertise, use cases and challenges that are very key to the New Zealand region and ANZ region. And also they provide additional services in terms of how to bring that last mile connectivity. So once we provide the intel and once we provide the expertise, how does that operationalize for the end user, and how can they actually make the most of it and really implement some actionable measures and mitigation steps to really avoid a breach. So it's definitely very effective, and more so for the customer and for the users, because they're able to get the product expertise as well as the expertise from the people that and the process.
Fantastic. Thank you. Can you share any use cases of where this partnership has been leveraged to the greatest effect for clients?
Yeah, there are a lot of use cases in general on a day-to-day basis. Every organization receives multiple incidents, and I'll name a few. For example, credential leak or business email compromise is one of the biggest risks that have come up in the past couple of years, where existing user accounts are stolen and the identity of executive users or employees are used by attackers to steal data, right? So in that sense, we really help our users to find out those breaches. And when it comes to Bastion, they're able to provide the last mile mitigation steps on how to avoid the same data leak from being misused, right? In terms of, let's say that an account is already leaked, and what are the steps to really mitigate it, how to set up two-factor authentication or an advanced steps to avoid the same account from being misused for another breach. There can be other potential use cases, such as keeping a watch on third-party companies. So for example, a lot of banking and financial companies, manufacturing or healthcare, they share a lot of data and PII data, which is highly sensitive. And a lot of government organizations have compliances to really make sure that this data is not leaked, right? And companies have penalties if they are unable to contain a breach where PII data is leaked. So how we help is we make sure that every organization is keeping a watch on their third parties, and we find out immediately if there's a breach, which can tie back to the organization's data. And how can we really mitigate it, or how can we contain it to make sure that the risk is minimized to the maximum possible option.
Great, thank you. What's the single biggest challenge your customers are facing today?
So I think there are two biggest challenges. One is consolidation and the other one is prioritization. So a lot of security and SOC teams, of course, they have very scattered technologies, right? Different tools. So putting together all the tools is definitely a huge challenge because you have to scout for these tools. You have to make sure that which one is right fit, gives you the right amount of information that's useful in your use cases, and then integrating them all together to get meaningful output out of it, and get the right metric, get the right KPIs that the business demands to make sure that it's up and running and it's a healthy environment. So it's a huge challenge because these products, they change over time. It requires business expertise. It requires keeping those products renewed on a yearly basis, making sure that the people are trained to manage that. It's a huge challenge for every organization, more so when the tools only address a single point of the problem, right? So in such situations, consolidation of tool is a huge demand from the market where companies are looking for solutions that can help address multiple problems in a single solution that helps to take away their burden of integrating smaller tasks together, right? And the other thing is prioritization. So in prioritization, it's difficult because of too many alerts, because of too much information. It gets difficult for them to really prioritize which are the right alerts, which are the immediate action items for them to really address. And in such situations, if they miss out on a high priority alert while looking at a low priority alert, it can easily result into a breach, right? So getting and addressing the right problem statement is another challenge where having the right tools can really help to prioritize the right, let's say, issues.
Great, thanks, Kalpesh. Final question for you.
Yep.
How do you expect the cybersecurity space to evolve over the next 12 months? Or in other words, what will we be talking about this time next year?
I think you already know the answer. The answer is AI and how we use AI more effectively in more defense because attackers have already started using AI in terms of how they can improve and make their attacks more targeted. So for example, business email compromise, right? It happens, a major cause of it is spear phishing attachments and email, right? So you receiving an email which is very neatly crafted, and when you look at that email, it makes really difficult for you to really identify whether this is actually a fake email or it's actually a real email, right? So you have to be really thorough or maybe attentive, and it can be easily overlooked. You look at hundreds of emails every day, you're busy with your work, and one character here or there, and you clicked on a link thinking that it's from a colleague. So it's very likely that it can happen. And because of the AI driven spear phishing email, the emails are very let's say accurate. So it becomes very difficult for anyone to really identify if it's a fake. And with that, it creates more opportunities for attacker to create a more personalized email. Writing an email that is very specific to you makes you feel that, it must be from someone like a real person. Or making it very much related to your role or job profile so that you feel that, it's something that is to do with my job or my responsibility. And that makes you more likely to really click on that mail, and that's a big advantage from an attacker's perspective because he can create those with using AI tools without much of an effort that he would have required before without an AI. The other challenge is using of LLMs and other such tools where data is actually leaving from organizations, and users are feeding that information to AI tools. Sometimes sensitive information is being fed for usual tasks. So that I feel is like some of the critical challenges that we see. And in terms of defense, right, the industry is also moving towards using of AI to make sure of how we can really increase the efficiency of the SOC operations, like, making sure that we, if you're receiving hundreds of alerts, how can we use AI to automate and remove the false positives and make sure that the teams are able to look at the most highest priority incidents faster compared to the lower priority, and can we remove the false positive using that, right? So it's definitely being used in both the ways. So it's something that's going to be around for some time now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kalpesh.
Yep.
That was great.
Welcome.
Very good.
Right.
So that sun's just.
Oh, okay. Right.
Oh, there we go.